in today's Thought Leaders with Roy Sheppard, I have two, both of whom are experts on topics that are so incredibly relevant in today's world. Caspar Craven is a specialist at high performance teamwork, and he's also the author of a number of books, and the books are called Be More Human, Rethinking the Rules of High Performance Teamwork, and Where the Magic Happens, which tells the true story of how he and his wife sailed around the world with their young children. It was one of those books that you feel sad when you realize that you've only got 20 more pages to go. Anyway, hello, Caspar. It's very nice of you to join us today. You've led high performance teams in global corporations and a high performance team which included 3 children under the age of 10. What's easier and what are the differences?
With your children, it's significantly harder. And actually, children have a great amount to teach you because they are pretty much unvarnished. If they're unhappy with something, they will tell you straight away. It will be obvious, which isn't always the case in the working world. But fundamentally, right, the principles are exactly the same. Is you've got to understand what's driving each and every person, and therein lies the similarity. And there's a huge amount that I think that work can learn from family, and vice versa as well.
Okay, well, we'll talk more, but let me introduce now Penny Mallory, who's a leading authority on mental toughness. She's a former British rally champion, a keynote speaker, and the author of the books World Class Thinking, World Class Behavior, and Take Control of Your Life. Penny, no one doubts the importance of mental toughness because billions of people are going through that every day. What can you do to learn to be more mentally tough?
There's all sorts of things you can do. And I think it's really important to understand actually what mental toughness is, because everyone has a sort of different take on it. It's the ability to cope with the stress and the pressure and the challenges and the chaos of life. The better you do that, the better the quality of your life. If you get really stressed out by stuff, fall to bits at the slightest hurdle, you're going to really struggle. So the more mentally tough you are, the more likely you are to enjoy a successful, happy, relaxed, enjoyable life.
So that sounds to me as though it's just the way that your mind processes a situation then.
That's exactly right. If your mind defaults to panic or stress or anxiety, you can retrain it to not do that. It's not going to be helpful to you a lot of the time if that's what happens. So it is the way your mind responds to situations that will deliver the outcome, deliver how you behave, if you meet your goals, your targets, your dreams, your ambitions. So the way you're absolutely right. The way you respond to events emotionally, mentally, will determine everything.
Now, you talk about there being 4 components to mental toughness. Can you talk us through them?
Yeah, and these are all really important. And as I do it, it's really important, I think, that everyone listening sort of starts to apply them to themselves, just have a little think. So the first area is control. This is control you feel you have over your life. Some people feel like they're in the driving seat, holding the steering wheel with the pedals under their feet. They choose the pace, the direction, the destination. They are in control. And some people feel like they're in the passenger seat. They are at the mercy of whatever the world chucks at them. And they have almost a victim stance. So you can have high sense of control, low sense of control, but there's also emotional control. If you're able to manage your emotions and the emotions of others, you're going to be feeling good about stuff. So that's control. And then there is commitment. Commitment is your ability to set and deliver on goals. So lots of people set goals and never do anything about them. Caspar is not one of those. Lots of people set goals and achieve them. Caspar is one of those. But some, you probably know people who set goals, talk about it, and do nothing about it. So the more you can set a goal and deliver on it, the more mentally tough you will be. Then there's challenge. This is the ability to see every single challenge that passes through your life as an opportunity for something, rather than a threat. So 2020 being the absolute classic example of the ultimate challenge. How do we turn this around? A mentally tough person will flip everything on its head and see some light, some energy, some opportunity in every challenge. And ultimately, and the last one is confidence. And this is really important. It sort of underlies everything. So confidence in your ability. I believe I can. I really, truly believe I can. I have a high level of confidence, high level of self-esteem, self-worth. And then confidence in dealing with other people. That's really important, because if you look nervous all the time, lacking confidence, people are going to really struggle to trust you. So having confidence dealing with other people is really important. So those are the 4 aspects of mental toughness, and they are completely changeable. Every day they will shift and move like sand, because, you know, everything every day is different and we respond differently.
Caspar, how does that respond or resonate with your experiences? Because I can think of a number of situations where you go, right, this is the theory, but here's the reality.
Gosh, I mean, there's where to start. I mean, there's so many truths in what Penny was just saying there that resonate very, very deeply. And gosh, where to start with that? I think that, you know, having the mindset and being able to make those shifts that Penny talks about, I think for me, so often that's a really important starting point for everyone. And, you know, a lot of it comes from the internal blueprints that we have. How do we think about things? What's our story? What's our identity? And we have to make shifts around that in order to go and achieve. Now, I'm all about big, bold goals, right? And how do you go and make those shifts to go and do that? But not just for you, but for those people around you as well. Because my experience is that nobody ever does anything alone. It's all about how do we build the teams to go and do these things. So it's creating that shift in the mindset for yourself, but also helping to enable your team to make those shifts as well. So look, there's a huge amount of crossover, right? Big, bold goals and the mental toughness, they go very much hand in hand.
Well, we'll talk about organizational team development in a little while, but the perfect example for me, reading your book about going around the world, was that, you know, you found yourself in a situation that you and your wife had created. Your children were passengers, but they weren't. And, you know, there was one point where there was a serious risk of sinking in the middle of a Pacific storm. How do you deal with the situation and the people that are with you who aren't necessarily in a position to do anything positive for themselves?
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, even in any situation, by the way, everyone has a part to play, no matter how big or small they are. I'm thinking children, right? Everyone has a role to play within that. And look, for me, in those moments, right, it's all about how do you react? How do you take control of that situation? And, you know, there's a lot of language around this, around resilience. And, you know, so often I think that people think that resilience is created in the moment, but it's not. Resilience is shaped in the way that you react to stuff every single day. And I think you can train yourself to do that. And again, I'm sure Penny and I will agree on an awful lot of things here. And so, you know, so when those moments do come, because they will come, right? Whether at work, whether at home, we're going to be challenged by different things at different times. It's being able to take a deep breath, to get your emotions under control, and to be able to think clearly around what are the best things that I need to do in this situation. What is the next action that I need to take? And doing that for yourself, and also being very conscious of the emotions and the reactions and the people around you. So that situation you talked about in the middle of the Indian Ocean, you know, we had some serious risks, and it's like, okay, well, I could let myself be overwhelmed by emotion, but that's not going to help, right? And we'd spent the 5 years preparing to go sailing. We're actually 5 years not just getting the money together and addressing all the different challenges that we thought about, but how do we react emotionally to those situations? So basically, we had lots of preparation for doing that. So in the middle of the ocean, it's like, okay, this is the situation we're facing. Let's very quickly discuss how do we do this? What are the best options we need to follow? And then literally put that into place. So it's all in the practice and the preparation for it.
But it starts with the person. Penny, you decided to be a rally driver. You wanted to be a rally driver for a long time, but the decision to actually do something about it was based on the fact that if you didn't, you would probably die.
Well, I was on my uppers in London, but I'd had a dream from 6 that I wanted to be a driver. I did nothing about it. I was living in homeless hostels and having a not such a good time. But and I did decide to sort of finish stuff because I was a bit over life. But I thought I must just fulfill my one dream that I've always had, which was to drive rally cars. So I'll just borrow some money. I lied and borrowed some money, never paid it back, and went to rally school for half a day. And that changed my life, because it was the first time I'd ever experienced an exhilaration, a thrill, and the seed of that, a passion that I'd never had before. That's when it all started. And, you know, I'd been building my mental toughness my entire life. And it prepared me well for getting into motorsport, because you need it. And then I went on I climbed mountains and boxed and run marathon. I've done all sorts of sort of extreme adventure-y stuff. I haven't been in the Atlantic Ocean on a boat. I can't imagine anything more terrifying, Caspar. But all of those things help you to develop mental toughness for sure.
Okay, Caspar, you're applying the principles of mental toughness and resilience and organization to the development of teams. And you mentioned just now about being into big, bold goals. So how do you turn a group of individuals, some of whom will be fairly driven, like you characters, and some are not so driven? What do you do to help a team become more of team players rather than a group of individuals with their own agendas?
Yeah, no, there's several things to start with. The two of the biggest ones for me are around building trust and getting everyone pointing in the same direction. And, you know, the thing around building trust, right? What at the end of the day, what's a team? A team is simply a group of people who trust each other. How do you build that trust? By asking questions, by listening, by really listening to what's going on for each person, because I've come to the conclusion in life that people only do things for their reasons, not for your reasons. So to create a team that's going in a particular direction, it has to resonate with people on the team at an emotional level. So the first thing is sort of that trust building piece, and that real sort of deep listening and making sure that everybody is engaged in going in a particular direction. The next piece then is, and by the way, there's an awful lot more depth in that, but just sort of covering this at surface level. It's you know, I was talking about going for big, bold goals. And, you know, my fundamental thing is, like, you're going to go and be somewhere in a year's time. You're going to be somewhere in 3 years' time. Why not make it big and bold? So many of us, I think, settle for what I call incremental improvements. And so for me, it's starting at the end point and, you know, asking the question, what if? What if we can go and do this? What if we, you know, just suspend reality for a moment, create a blank sheet of paper and saying, what's an exciting story of the future that we would all be proud to go and create, that would make us feel excited? And it's having that discussion with the core team of people, really listening, really engaging with people and creating that future picture. Because once you start to get that, then you're all starting to point in the same direction. The danger without that is you're all going in different directions, and there isn't much trust. And, you know, you're never going to achieve big, bold goals in that scenario. So it's the dual things of trust building and co-creating that exciting story of the future. And, you know, listening is the fundamental commodity underpinned on all of that.
You talk about putting people first and then the results will follow. But in the real world of business, people are now so under pressure, they're so stressed, and it's very difficult to see longer term very often.
Very true. It's absolutely right, and those are pressures that we all face. But here's the thing, right? Here's what I found is that if you end up relentlessly focusing on the numbers, then you are paradoxically unlikely to achieve them. The most likely way to achieve the numbers and the results you want is by focusing on the people. It's almost detaching yourself from the outcome in some senses. You know, I was listening very recently to Seth Godin, and he talked about, you know, if you want to learn juggling, what you have to do is you have to practice on the throwing up, throwing the ball up, and that's the only skill that you're focusing on, because the catching will take care of itself once you get the throwing in the right place. And literally all you do is throw and drop, throw and drop, throw and drop. It's exactly the same thing. And I know that sounds really hard when you're under pressure for cash flow, for numbers and so on. But my experience has led me to the conclusion the single best way is to focus on that practice, which is all about getting people in the right roles, doing things where they feel appreciated, doing things where they feel very valued, really putting people first, and the results follow as a natural consequence of that. As with the juggling, focus on the throwing and eventually the catching will come.
Penny, what mistakes do you see people make when it comes to their ability to cope with the sorts of situations that Caspar's talking about? Because people are afraid of change, aren't they?
I think most people will resist change. People are being asked this entire year. I've worked with so many organizations whose people are falling over. They're absolutely exhausted. They've got twice as much work going on. They've got, less budget, more challenges left, right, and center. And so they are all feeling pushed. And the danger is that a really tough, mentally strong leader will push everyone until they all fall over. And I think a lot of it is about self-awareness for leadership as well. If I am a really strong leader, are people intimidated by me? Am I listening? As Caspar so rightly said, am I really listening to anyone? Because quite often they will shut off. They will stop listening because they are in their own little panic mode trying to deliver.
So I think survival mode, really.
Absolutely. But I think the danger, and Caspar's so bang on with this, that you've got to look after the people because they're the only ones that are going to deliver the results for you. But I think for a lot of people, a lot of people in leadership, they might lack self-awareness, because if I am intimidating, people aren't going to tell me what I actually really need to hear. And even if they tell me, I might not be listening because I am so focused on where I'm going. Whatever. And it's really easy for people in leadership roles to stop listening because they've got so much pressure. And I think that's a really important part of mental toughness. I can score people for their mental toughness out of 10. It was an online assessment. And if I see 9s and 10s, I really start to worry, because these people can be too focused, too dogmatic, too stubborn. And I actually try to wind them back down a bit to have a look at their self-awareness, because the more self-aware you are, the easier it's going to be to deliver results, because everyone will be on board with you.
So Caspar, how do you get leaders to change their personality or their leadership style in order to do the sorts of things that you're talking about?
Yeah, no, look, I mean, I come back to that fundamental thing, right? That people only do things for their reasons, not for your reasons. And, I think that you can put these things in front of people, but it has to be up to that person to take that idea on board and to run with that. Picking up on what Penny was just saying about, workforces being exhausted at the moment and the dangers of a mentally tough leader driving people hard. I've experienced that myself. And the danger is that in this current world, you misread the signals, because we're all communicating via a screen and we don't pick up all those subtle cues, the body language cues. And, I know someone I was working with got upset with me because I missed the subtle messages that were there in words, that if I was meeting with them face to face, I would have picked up all those non-visual cues. And that led someone to get upset with me. And so I had to, we figured it out. But it's missing those things. So therefore, it's just really stepping inside somebody's world. And if someone is receptive, someone is in a learnable mode, in a teachable mode, then you can definitely share those insights for them. But you can't force that on people. I think people have to be willing to take that.
And I think it's really important to remember that if you want people to change or change what they do, they're really going to resist it, because there's probably nothing in it for them. Because as Caspar says, most people are in stuff for themselves or their own agenda at some level. So the only way you can change somebody's behavior is to change the way they think and feel. Because if I think and feel quite differently, my behavior will unfold in line with where you're taking me. So, trying to get people to change their behavior, forget it. It's not going to happen. You change the way they think and feel.
And just on that, sorry. Just in terms of, when we go back to talking about big, bold goals, sometimes I find people find it very, very hard to suspend reality and imagine this place in the future, because it just seems so detached from reality. So you say, let's play a game. And people don't mind playing games, right? And suddenly it just sort of enables them to free things up and remove those tram lines in their mind and say, okay, how can I think about this in a different way?
Okay, Penny, what examples can you think of people that you've been working with where they've had aha moments and it really has had a profound impact on the way that they think and then ultimately the way they behave?
Well, Roy, I work with teams, but I work more with individuals as a coach. So I do mental toughness coaching. I work with people to develop their confidence and commitment and control and all that sort of stuff. And something as simple as a guy I was working with just before Christmas, he is absolutely overloaded with stress and pressure. There is just, he can hardly breathe during the day. He's got so much going on. And so he took an hour out. I don't know quite how he fitted me in for an hour, but we just did an hour Zoom call. And I slowly, just asked him to pick apart everything. And he said at the end of the hour, oh my gosh, this is all so simple, but I couldn't see it. And I think that's also the danger, is that people are going flat out to deliver and to keep going without taking just a little step back and, working with somebody to challenge your assumptions, challenge the way you think and the way you approach stuff is really valuable, because as soon as you're talking to yourself, you've got your own conversation going on in your head. Sometimes you don't make much progress because you're just on the same hamster wheel in your mind. But an external person coming in to challenge what you're saying, challenge what you're thinking, can be really enlightening. And the conversations that me and this chap had, and he's a very senior guy, he couldn't believe how ridiculously simple, and he came up with all the answers, not me. It was just my questions that he kept going, oh my God. And he had like 4 light bulb moments in an hour. And it was so thrilling for me. That's why I do what I do, to see that transformation in somebody. He said, I can do this.
You talk to men and women. What are the different sorts of challenges that women face when it comes to mental toughness? Because in a way, men are encouraged to appear mentally tough, when in fact that isn't always the case.
Well, and that's the thing, is
isn't it?
Mental toughness is not macho or aggressive. This is, some of the quietest people. Think about NHS nurses, how mentally tough these girls are, and boys. And they wouldn't appear to be, they wouldn't be loud or what you'd expect mentally tough. Mentally tough can be super quiet, but incredibly strong inside. Now, what was your question? I've forgotten.
Well, what are the differences between men and women? What are the
okay
that women have to deal with?
So men tend to be, I'm going to get crucified for this, but it is the truth. Men are very good at putting on the show, and they might be crumbling inside, but you wouldn't know it. But women tend to be more affected, more emotional creatures. I'm generalizing, of course, but women that tend to be more emotional and more intimidated. So I speak to ridiculous amounts of women who say, I know that I'm good at my job. I just can't speak up in board meetings. Can you help me to speak up and speak out? Because they just feel so intimidated by powerful men around them. And that I see all the time. But the truth is, when you get under the skin, the women are actually way stronger than the men. It's just the men have a better way of putting on the show. So there definitely are some gender differences. And I'm totally generalizing because I've seen the absolute opposite as well. But I know when I was driving as well, it was incredibly easy. It could have been easy for me to be intimidated by the environment that I was in, which was, of course, mostly male. But I was so determined. I was so disciplined. And this is another important aspect of mental toughness, is building discipline into your life, which I had to do at a very young age. I left home at 14, and I would have died had I not created some discipline and some rules and some guidelines for myself that I never allowed myself to break. And at my grand old age, I'm still not allowed to break them in my head. It's crazy. But those rules and disciplines have created mental toughness, where I'm not allowed to say, I'm not allowed to say no to doing certain things. I have to push myself and break through stuff. And as much as I don't want to, and I've done this in so many situations for all my life, you come out the other side going, oh my God, I can do that. This is okay. I'm still alive and I've come through, and wow. And all of those tiny little things you do will be building mental toughness without you realizing it. So I think part of the secret to this is to not do the natural reaction, which is to back away and just push through. And that takes some courage, for sure.
Caspar, what about examples of people and organizations that you've worked with who you've challenged them to set big, bold goals, and you've maybe created a situation where you've shocked even them in a good way?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's gosh, where to start with that? I'm thinking about a particular company I've been working with for the last 2-3 years, and every year we sit down and just sort of say, sit down with a blank sheet of paper and imagine what this would be. And I spoke to them just before Christmas, and they said that this year has literally been their best year ever, because what they have done is they have challenged their beliefs on what is possible. And rather than going along with the whole sort of sea of, it's very easy to do this, right? Everything is terrible, everything is going to hell in a handbasket. They said, okay, where's the opportunity in this? How do we turn things around? Great. Our customer expectations have shifted. The customer requirements have shifted. How do we take first mover advantage on that? And I think having that sort of mindset is amazing. So we're now sitting down in January and we're planning out the next year. And you know what? They're in a fantastic place to really take advantage of this. They've got their team in a great place. And so now they're looking forward. Okay, what are the next big, bold goals?
And
So,
what you're describing is that aspect of mental toughness, which is a challenge to see every challenge as an opportunity to flip it around. And that is got to be in the hands of some really big, bold leaders who are prepared to listen to their team that they trust and say, look, guys, what do you see that I don't see? How can we flip this? And I think that is the secret to really coming through these weird, I think it might be years, not months. That's going to be the secret to people surviving, is listening to the guys around them and trusting and flipping stuff.
I think that's
Penny, what's your big, bold goal for 2021?
Finish my house. I'm renovating my 7th house, and I'm definitely not doing another one. But I've said that 3 times before. I'm going to finish my house, and I'm building my business, and I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited about working with some incredible organizations this year. Next year's nearly there. And I have got a physical challenge. And Caspar will know this. A colleague of ours, a fellow speaker, Kevin Gaskell, rode the Atlantic, and I was so jealous that he'd done it. And as Caspar knows, well, I am more terrified of water and the ocean and not being able to hold on to the sides and touch the bottom than anyone on the planet. So I thought, I'm going to have to do what Kevin did and row the Atlantic, because I can't imagine anything more terrifying. 100-foot waves over a tiny little boat. So I'm rather thinking I need to do that, but the virus will stand in the way of me doing that, so I can put it off for a little while, thankfully. But
self-isolation to the nth degree.
Well, I wouldn't do it solo, that's for sure. I'd do it with as many. I think you get five is the most people you can get in a boat. I'd do that, but that is haunting me to row the Atlantic. But yeah, Caspar, maybe one little conversation with Caspar, he might put me off forever.
Caspar, what's your big, bold goal for 2021?
So right now, we're building some incredible teams right now to tackle big, bold goals. So basically the big, bold goals team, we are building that. We're working with lots of companies already kicking into 2021. And also we are backing, investing in companies that are tackling big, bold goals. So one of the companies that we've backed basically has come up with a system which kills COVID and other pathogens inside buildings. It's at least 23 times more effective than the next best thing on the market. So we're not only going into companies and working with them, but we're actually going and tackling big, bold goals ourselves. So super excited to go and do that.
Okay, guys.
What's yours, Roy? Roy, what's yours?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, in all seriousness, it's to talk to a lot more really interesting people like you. I have
it won't be hard to find anyone more interesting than us.
I have a dream job, I'll tell you. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for sharing your insights about mental toughness and, high performance teamwork as well. Caspar, Craven, Penny, Mallory, thank you.
Thank you, Roy.
Thanks, Penny.
Bye, Caspar.